Let's talk about property showing. I find that this is one of those topics that is a massive part of your job as a realtor, showing properties, and so many real estate agents are not doing it correctly. So I want to bring it to the forefront here. There's good ways to show a property, and there are not so good ways of showing properties. There are a lot of real strategy that goes into them, and I want to hear them. Especially if I missed anything that really works for you, leave in the comment section below. I love to hear it. I want to share with you some of the ones that worked really well for me, not only for conversion, but to build a better relationship with your clients as well, to get the right information from them and to have better success so that you're not running around showing properties after properties. And I'm not sure if you've been there, but I certainly have, especially in my earlier days showing properties where you show a ton of properties to a buyer and they're still indecisive, they're not quite sure what properties to go with, and or you show up to a property and you're not quite prepared because you've never done it before. So there's a lot of learning that comes from conducting and showing properties, booking properties to show. So stay with me. Especially, I'm going to do a quick introduction and then I'm going to dive into some strategies. And if this is your first time coming to my YouTube channel and you haven't quite met me, I want to do a quick introduction. My name is Tharmila Rajasingam. I'm a real estate agent with eXp Realty Brokerage. I'm also a CRM peer coach with Inside Real Estate. On this channel, I share everything from real estate marketing strategies on how to work with buyer, seller, clients, lead generation, social media, name it. You're going to learn about it on this channel. So I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button and let's stay connected so that we can learn and grow together. And if you are a real estate agent thinking about changing brokerages, if you are a newer agent and you're thinking about looking to find a brokerage, please highly recommend you click the link in the description, look up eXp Realty, look up Agent Wolfpack, and partner with me and choose me as your sponsor. And I'll be happy to share all the information, any questions you may have about how I could be of support to you and to helping you grow your business. So all the information is in the link in the description below. So check it out. So let's get started showing properties. This is by far one of the biggest aspect of your job as a real estate agent. And like I mentioned, there's so many great strategies that go into them. And there are a lot of prep and a lot of work that goes into preparing to show a property. And then there's some things that go into after, during, and after showing a property. And I want to share with you some of my best tips. Number one being research. You want to make sure you completely understand the needs of your buyer client. So when you're working with your buyers, maybe you want to do a needs analysis, find out exactly what they're looking for in a property. The many times when realtors make a mistake is they're not pre-qualifying their clients. And I mean, not just in terms of finances, but exactly what are they looking for in terms of how can you solve a problem for them when it comes to real estate and looking for that right property. So making sure you understand exactly what they want, and then now you're also researching prior to showing the property, understanding, knowing the area, doing the research on the community, making sure you completely understand the type of comparables of properties that are shown sold in the last 30 days. And also you understand completely the properties that you're about to show your clients. So you're looking up at the age of that property, whether it be a condo or a single family home. You're looking up at the size of that property. Any information that is mentioned on the listing that might be of interest to your buyer, you want to highlight, because every buyer is different. They may be looking at a particular thing. Like I just recently put an offer literally last night for a client who's very particular about making sure that parking is sorted out because he really likes his property, but there's a massive construction that is happening underground in this condo building. And he bought a brand new Honda Civic, and a lot of cars are being stolen in the area that I am right now at. So that's a big concern for him to park his car outside. So making sure I had to do my research to make sure that I'm the property that he's choosing and the one that he's really attracted to and it's appealing for him in many aspect. That aspect of the parking can be resolved. So you are making sure that any problem that may arise with a particular property that they really like, you're able to have solution. And the only way to do that is you're doing your research. And I highly recommend that every buyer, there are particularities that they would want in a property, and you want to make sure you're kind of marrying the two with the right information, with the right property. And some of my clients, another thing is that, they take a little bit longer to look and walk through the property. Some people go through it quite quickly, some of them take a really long time. And more recently, I had a retired construction worker who was very particular about very specific things in the property because he used to work in construction. So our showing was kind of like an inspection. He checked everything from the electrical panel to all the pipes to see if they're working. He went on the water. Like some of my buyers don't quite do that because they leave that to the inspector. But in this case, he was doing that to make sure that he was one step ahead because that's just the type of buyer he is. So I made sure to book the maximum amount of time for the showing. One, and two, I made sure that as we're getting closer to the showing end time, I'm able to communicate with them, let them know, hey, we have 10 more minutes, we have 5 more minutes, so we have to be out of the property. And also letting them know, kind of setting the expectation of of the property showing and what it's going to be like. So I like to come a little bit early, a couple of minutes to grab the keys, etc. And I always bring a two printout of the MLS sheet, and I sometimes highlight because obviously every client is different. And with my recent client, him being very hands-on, not every property is vacant. Sometimes the seller is seller occupied, sometimes it's tenant occupied. And I'm not sure about you, not every time the people that are occupying the property always leaves the property. So they may not like when people start touching things in their property that they're still currently living in. So you want to be really upfront and set the expectation with your client that there's certain things you can't and can do when you're in a property showing and showing a property. And I always take the MLS sheets just to give one to the client, one for me, and I always highlight important things that are particular to this client, like for example, locker, additional locker space, if they have parking, for example, and if they what is the maintenance fee, and does the maintenance fee include a particular things. All of these things, again, if that pertains to that client, I would highlight. And or one of my clients I've had, they were very particular about the age of the property. It has to be under 5 years. So I was not only making sure that the property that I was showing was under 5 years, but I was making sure exactly when it was built because I know they were going to ask me that. And they mentioned that in my pre-qualifying stage. And also, like I mentioned, I always do the research in terms of the neighborhood and the community, but I always like to take comparables of what's selling in the building as well, especially if it's a condo building or in the area. And so sometimes I like to point out to them, hey, that house was sold, last month for X amount of money, or there's a unit right above you that is the exact same condition, that is newly renovated, same size, that was sold for this much. So just to let them know that I've done my research and I'm ready to negotiate. And so they know that I have their best interest at all time. And also, whenever before I go show a property, sometimes some of my clients will send me a couple of properties. They're like, I like this. Not, I just kind of want to see the feel of this building. But I also, if it's the first time I'm showing properties to them and to gauge what kind of properties they're really looking for, I don't mind showing them another additional building that they want to get a feel at. But I also want to make sure I know exactly what they want. And that's why that needs analysis I keep going back to, is because once you know your client really well, finding the right properties for them, saving both of you time and money from running around in circle looking for the wrong properties is so important. And trust me, because I've been there, that is one of the biggest reasons why sometimes property showings can be so detrimental to, and not them thinking and questioning if you're the right fit and if you're the authority that they're looking for, that leader that they're looking for, and in really understanding real estate and to be able to be helpful for them and to find the right property. And the other thing that I always like to do right after the property and showing a property is just right outside the property, I like to kind of stop for a couple of minutes and quickly ask them for feedback. And I like to take note of what stood out to them in that property that they liked and they didn't like, because that is where you are grabbing insights. Because once they start to see a property, trust me, more a light bulb will go up, especially if they're a newer buyer and seller, buyers, new buyer, and even a new seller too, right? When they're about to sell their property for the first time, once you do the walkthrough, very similar. So for me, a buyer who's buying a property for the first time, once they do that first couple of showings, you'll know immediately they're going to start to see different things that the pre-qualifying stage where the needs may start to change because now they've seen the property. So a couple of things I like to do is, again, quickly jot down some feedback so I know exactly what they're looking for. And the last thing I forgot to mention that is huge is when you have your MLS sheet, I always like to write down the code. Make sure you take note of exactly where it is. Obviously, for us, I have an app called Broker Bay, and every time, majority of the time, not every property is listed through, depending on the brokerage, is listed through Broker Bay. So they may go through showing time, and the code might be a little different, or there might be an electrical code that you have to use, a lockbox code to get into the property, or there might be multiple different codes. So every property showing is different. So I like to make note of exactly where the lockbox is, if there's a rent ribbon on it, if there's a business card of the listing agent. I like to also make a note of exactly if there's multiple code. There's recently a property that I had to use a code to get into the main door, the entrance into the building. And then that led me into a lockbox where, or a cabinet box that held the lockbox, which had a code, and then the lockbox code to get the key. So all of this obstacle I had to write down, and I wanted to be prepared because your clients are standing sometime right beside you, and you want to make sure you've done your research and that they can depend on you. If you can't even look for keys and if you're confused, that also gives them an idea like, oh my goodness, this is the one of the biggest purchase of my life, and do I have the right agent for me? So want to make sure that preparing is a huge part of showing a property and making sure you're doing your research. And so those are some of the things that really stood out for me in terms of my biggest learning as a realtor showing properties. I hope these are my best tips for showing properties for, again, high conversion, client satisfaction, making sure you are walking away, making sure getting you closer to finding the right property for your client. I hope these were helpful. If there's any that works really well for you that I missed, I'd love to know in the description, and let me know what market you're in because I know every market is different. So thank you. And like I mentioned, if you want to work with me, partner with me at eXp Realty and get access to all my resources for free, and choose me as your sponsor inside the Agent Wolfpack at eXp Realty. You know what to do. Click that description. In the description, click on that link and learn all about it and book a call with me, and I'll be happy to explain and answer any questions you have. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.